Just to shmooze adorch a few inyan about Yom Kippur, just the basics. The way we have to understand what's happening on this Yom HaKadosh V'Atahar. What's happening is, I'll tell you a story. When I was a kid, I was riding a bike. We went on a biking trip. I was riding a bike, and my bike slid in the mud, and I scraped up my arm, ganz geschmack. And there was a lot of mud and blood that were all mixing together my arm. And, we didn't want to put a Band-Aid on it because then it would, we don't want it with all the blood, with the mud to get infected. It was a strictly open, a strictly shvar matziv. So my grandfather came to us for Shabbos that week. It was still a lot of, it was still pretty dirty. I was too scared. It was 9. I was 9, 10, maybe 11. I don't know. I was little. And in order to I couldn't figure out how to get the mud out because it was open. It was a wound. It wasn't like a massive wound, but it was pretty bad. Friday afternoon before Shabbos, my grandfather took a bar of soap and started rubbing the thing to get out the mud. And you have to understand, I wasn't into this to begin with, and the scrape mitzad itself hurt very much. And now you're putting a bar of soap directly into the cut. It mamish killed, right? It was shrekla. But at the end of the day, you got out the mud. That's what Yom Kippur is. As I was thinking that's what Yom Kippur is about. It's a very graphic description of what's going on. But I want to bring out the Nakuda. The Nakuda is like this. When a person sits down and makes a cheshbon and nefesh and goes through everything that he did against Ziyar, what he should do, what he needs to be misakin and mitzvah say, mitzvah lois say, all the things that we're going to talk about in the Yeshamnus and in the Alchet, with the ganze Maisa, right? At the end of the day, it's really painful to see how bad you messed up against Ziyar. You get caked in mud, right? And then there's one day a year HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, just to say, my father always said it over when we were kids, you have your thing, you're very, very dirty, you go into the washing machine, you spin it for a couple of loads, and you come out and you're clean. That's Yom Kippur. It's Achas Bashana. The reason why it's Achas Bashana is because it's a once a year opportunity, but it's also, the Maral talks that it's Achas. The point is that Aaron HaKohen goes into Lefnai v'Lefnim. He goes into the makam, of the, he has the Yechidus Kilu with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's something that he didn't do the whole rest of the year. And the Picker of Belezer goes on and on about the Madrega that we're on Yom Kippur, Mamash Kamalachi Asharis, that we don't wear shoes and we wear white like the Malachi Asharis, and we don't eat like the Malachi Asharis, and there's Ein Kinna Ve'Ein Sinna Beinayam like the Malachi Asharis. And on and on. Mamash is a beautiful thing. Alavai, we should live up to that. But that's an akud of Achas Bashana. It's a year when we as Klal Yisrael become one with each other, and we become one with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's nothing that's being magdil between us and our fellow Yid, because we, think about it, what we say in the Ilul, Manechdal Me'oshek Yadeinu, we're mispalel, that Kol Yom Kippur is only mechaber for Ben Adam Lamokim. Ben Adam Lachavera, Asher Atis Chavera. Right? If I have a gzeila in my hand, and I'm davening against Yom Kippur, it's not going to do anything. I'm still holding on to the chet. Doesn't help. So when we're being mispalel in the Ilul, Manechdal Me'oshek Yadeinu, we're being mispalel, that we should be able to get rid of, that we shouldn't be held accountable, that hopefully we got rid of all those things that we needed to have gotten rid of before. But I saw a very interesting taich in the Ilah. It's more of a Chassidish, I saw in the Chassidish Svarim, they taich like this. Ne'ilah means to lock, right? So we're used to, I think when we were kids, they taught us Pshat, because now, Shar Shemayim are closed, The Yemei Ratzon are from Rosh Hashanah to Yom Kippur. Right, I don't think that's accurate 100%, because the system that starts really in Elul, which, as we spoke before, is really a continuation of the Shiva Denechanta, which is coming from Tishba with the right. It's a cycle. It's like a clock. It keeps going around and around. It doesn't stop. Every year it's the same thing, and hopefully every year it's not the same thing. Every year in a certain Eifin, it's the same thing, because it's Yom Kippur again. But hopefully we were masakin a lot more since last Yom Kippur. Now we're 1 year closer to the Geula. We have 1 year. We have a whole another peckle of mitzvahs from this past year that I'm schlepping with me, right? But that's the so Ne'ilah is the pshat is that by a lot of times like when people go to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, they would call it a yechidus with the Rebbe. It was like they say in the Israeli say ba'al ba'inayim, 4 eyes. There's nobody else in the room, right? By Ne'ilah, Pshat is you're locked in with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not Pshat that we're locked in the gates that there's no more Shar Shemayim anymore. The Shar Shemayim are closed. Because that's Mamshech through Sukkot and the what's the Simcha of Sukkot? The Simcha of Sukkot is coming after the Kaparas Havaynis of Yom Kippur. It's Parshat Hazai. It starts Matzah in Kippur, you're supposed to build a Sukkah. Why? I don't build a Sukkah every Yom Tov, but you have to build it now. That's the reason Makdim, you can find. But the Lumdus, the Oimik is, the Lumdus of it is. Because you completely disconnected from the Guf on Yom Kippur. Now you want to show that you're disconnecting with your Makom also. You're transferring into a place, into a Makom of non-Makom. It's not, a Sukkah is not a place. A Sukkah is a bunch of branches and a bunch of boards and you slap them together and you hope it stands and maybe not. I mean, obviously, halachically, it's going to be standing, right? And weiter. You go around the beam every day with the Daled Minim, right? Till Shad Rabbah, which is the Chsima, Mishteit and Chazal, and then there's Shmini Atzeres, and then there's Simchas Torah. Simchas Torah is, every day there's a person standing by the Hakofis, by the Rishanis, that's holding the Sefer Torah. Now, on Simchas Torah, you take that and you dance around at that. It's all a build-up of a tshuva from the Hamloch of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to the Mechilas Havaynis. And then once you finish with the Mechilas Havaynis of Yom Kippur, then we go and we make Simchas Be'She'evis, we make tremendous Simcha on Sukkos. But that's the Pshat, is because Ne'ilah means that we're locked in with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I think we think about it, B'Shas Maisa, I think it'll change our perspective a little bit. I think would be very good. So just the Maramakum where we're going to be talking here is the Maral has a Drush L'Shabbos Tשובה. He calls it. It's very long, it's about 30 pages long, which is always the question: who exactly sat and listened to the Maral? So somebody said, well, if you learned on Chaim Berlin, you're used to it already, sitting through the 30-page Shabbos Drasha. But the point is that he starts off talking about he mamish covers so many different inyanim. And there's a hemshech to the whole thing. So at one point, it's like 3-4 pages before the end. It's printed in the old Marals in the back of the Baragoyla. And he says it's actually 20 pages. Or to be precise, it's 21. But see, he brings in the last like 3-4 pages, he discusses Yom Kippur. He first talks about the Chamisha Inuyim, the 5 things that we have to not do on Yom Kippur, how it can correspond, how each one corresponds to another one of the 5 chalokim of the Neshama, which we're not going to get into because that's very esoteric and mystical and not for right now. And then he goes into a little bit about the Achas L'mayla V'Sheva L'mata, because the Maral likes to talk that there's the number 7 is always represents the Teva, and the Shmoyim is always the L'mayla Min HaTeva. So there's the achas, when we're screaming by the avodah, achas, that achas that we're talking about, that's the dam that's being ramized to Klal Yisrael as opposed to the rest of the world. Because we are the ones that are, we say this all the time, that Oz Yashir Lamazogin, right? The Gemara says that that's a remez, l'tchis ha-mesim in ha-Torah. The aleph is reichev al zayin, right? So that's the achas l'mayla v'sheva l'mata. We are in that aleph. Today is the achas, like we said before. It's achas bashana because it's vayerev. The Medrash says vayerev vayivoker yom echad is Yom Kippur because it's a day where the entire bria. It's not shot like Rosh Hashanah because like we all recognize HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're all going to be mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But like we said, we're still fighting with Yetzer Hara on Rosh Hashanah. Right, we said that's what we spoke with Shana, that there's a whole conflict between us and the Umas Ha'olam, us and Esav, Yitzhak and Yetzer Hara. That's what the whole shmuz that we spoke with Shana was all about. When it comes to Yom Kippur, the Gemara says that the Satan doesn't have Rishus. We're above the Satan. The Satan doesn't belong. He can't fit into. See, like we said before, when there's Ne'ilah Pshat is when you lock the door to the room, you don't want anybody to come in. We're locking the Satan out of the room. We don't allow him into this space, this Rishus Hayachid, which is Svarim, by the way, referred to different Zachem, but the Rishus Hayachid means when you're being Davik in the Rebbeinu Shalom, and again, we're talking about the Achas Bashana, the Achas L'mal Shalom Matri, everybody Yom Echad, and this is a Rishus Hayachid. This Rishus Hayachid means us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that's it. Fine. So then he goes on with that, and he talks about why dafka shnei seirim. So he talks about, I'll just read a few lines over here. The blood, we know that's why the Shvatim used the dam hasor when they, by Mechiras Yosef. But then he goes on to something very interesting. And I think it's something that we can relate to. A lot of things he talks very high and yonim, it's hard to understand. I mean, the mashal here may be a little interesting. This is on page Pei Gimel. I don't know if they reprinted this yet. This is in the old prints, page Pei Gimel, which is the, very much towards the end, third to last page of this drasha. B'davar zeh mashi Yisrael hem kedoshim utahorim mitzad atzmam. You have to realize something. Imagine a person has all kinds of taras. He goes to a Rav, and he sits there and he cries to the Rav about all his taras. So the Rav gives him an eitzah, gets this asking involved, calls that one, takes care of the taras. Right. At the end of the day, it's like half his peckle is unloaded. And he feels like he could breathe. He can't enjoy himself yet, right? A couple of weeks later, he bumps into some old chaver who did very well, and he's like, "What's going on?" He's like, "You really want to know?" He's like, "Yeah." He's serious. You really want to know? Like, yeah. So he tells him the rest of his taras. And he says, "Oh, Punkt, I just met a guy," and he sets him up with some other chaver. All problems solved, all the money's paid up, everything's in place now. How happy does that guy feel? He's going to have a Shabbos like he never had before, right? We walk around the whole year in the mud, in the schmutz, in the Olam Hazeh. Even if Olam Hazeh, we're not doing bad things. But we do get put in bad things too, right? People say Olam Hazeh is bad. No, we live in Olam Hazeh to do mitzvahs, enter Olam. The purpose of Olam Hazeh is that we can create Kedusha. And we'll get to that in a second. And I just want to read a few lines of the Maran. B'davar zeh mashi Yisrael hem kedoshim utahorim mitzad atzmam. And this is a thing that we have to always remember. The reason why that Klal Yisrael is kedoshim and tahorim mitzad, the mere fact of the existence of Klal Yisrael is that they're kedoshim utahorim, mipnei sheyesh lahem nefesh tahora ukedosha, because they have a nefesh that's tahor and kadosh. V'chatoim shel Yisrael hem chatoim mibachutz. The chatoim that you didn't do, it's only external. The hainu mitzad yetzahara. The yetzahara, as we heard from Rabbi Cohen, the yetzahara is something that's outside the mensch. Rav Hutner used to talk. You know this Maral? The Maral brings that.
It says it?
Yeah, this is where it comes from. The Gemara says, Chishav lasses, say two Gemaras. Chishav lasses mitzvah v'nenas ma'ala kasat kilu asay. If a person, that's my brother's if a person who's had a mind to do a mitzvah, didn't get around to doing it, so the Gemara says, it's kilu he did it. What do you mean? He didn't do it. How could you? Okay, so the Rebbe has Rahmanis, so mark that you did the homework. What does that mean? What kind of game is this? Either you did, you didn't do it. It's just my love of akasiv. Bereshis, Hakadosh Baruch Hu Bereshis bar lekim, b'shvil Yisrael shenikar Bereshis. That Yisrael was Allah b'machshava tchila. So you have to understand what that means. That Yisrael was Allah b'machshava tchila. That means that the entire Bria was programmed around this Metzias called Yisrael. Right? Allah b'machshava tchila. So when Yid has a machshava, in a certain oifen, he's connecting to that original pre-Brias Olam machshava of Klal Yisrael. And only Klal Yisrael has that. So if a guy chishav lasses mitzvah v'nenas, nothing. If he doesn't do it, he never did it. Right? But fakaret, if a Yid has in mind to do an Aveira and he doesn't do it, unless it's Avodah Zarah, it's Kilu he didn't do it. But if a guy has in mind to do something bad to a Yid and he doesn't do it, it's a Ma'ila Lovat Kasav Kilu he did it. Why? Because he doesn't play a role. I mean, guy don't play a role in the Bria, but they don't play a role in the sense that they were Ola b'machshava tchila. That's just interesting to remember. The way Rav Hutner used to talk about it was like this. This is Gemara Nazir and the Dorim.
When a Yid wants to do a good thing, why is it what's Pshat?
But I'm not saying that this is Pshat, I'm saying an idea that there's a concept that because it was Ola b'machshava tchila, a Yid is very connected to the Elam HaMachshava, right, to the place of thought. You know, Rabbi Yerucham, one of my rabbis always used to say over there, Rabbi Yerucham always used to say, if a guy were to look at the list of al-chetz he'll think we're crazy, and it should bring us to such a tremendous gaiva d'kedusha. Because like I told somebody the other day, I told a chaver of mine, I said like this, I said, you have no idea. Whenever you feel like you're losing self-control on whether it's eating or some other kind of taiva, quote unquote, that you're getting chapped up with, just remember that that's only because you're a yid. And if only you would know how little, I'm not even talking kedusha, I'm talking practical mitzias, a day-to-day life of a guy. The amount of self-control that part of the creation has is so minimal, if it even exists at all. Now, we beat ourselves up. We beat ourselves up if we thought or we looked at. What do you mean you can't look at stuff? You can't think about stuff. Your mind goes, it just goes. No, but we have to be able to control. We have a neshama that gives us the echadus and witziat neshama to talk about, to control every single part of our mitzias. People aren't going to agree with this, but thus it is. There's a Gemara that says, it's in the Torah, it's a Nazir, that Shimon HaTzadik never ate from Yomai Lo Yachaltu Me'asham Nazir. He never ate from the karbanos of a Nazir. Why? Because it was a shayla of kachah bachutz, whatever it was. He says, Pam Achas, he ate from it. Why? Because he met this Nazir, and he says, he was a Nazir, Habom and Adorim, and the Maharsha explains, goes through all the different, if you have a Adorim over there, maybe I'll go through the Gemara and the Maharsha. Because it's kedai to see it, because it's very descriptive. It's geschmack when the stories are always geschmack.
It's from one, the Amud Beis on the beginning.
Yeah.
Shouldn't have said.
So what was the Maisa? What was the Pshat? Pshat is a say. It's kedai to see it inside of it's Tesam Beis in the door. The Tanya Omer Shimon HaTzadik. Miyoma lo echalti Hashem Nazir tamei ale echad. I only ate from one, another tamei echad. Just keep in mind, the echad. Pam achas ba'odam echad nazir min adorim. Once upon a time, like all good stories start, a fellow was a nazir from the south, came to the Beis HaMikdash. His eyes looked beautiful and he looked beautiful. Right? The Gemara says you just look at a person's eyes and you know the rest of the story. With beautiful flowing locks of hair. I said to him, why do you decide to cut this all off? Because at the end of the Naziris, you got to chop it off and throw it into the fire. He said to me, I was a shepherd for my father in my city. I went to fill up water from the spring, and I caught a glimpse of my image, of my reflection in the water. And my Yetzirah started talking to me. He grabbed a hold of me and he started talking to me. And he says like this, he wanted me to get involved in some chatoim. I told him, Rasha, wicked one, why are you being mizgah? Who are you? Who do you think you are to tell me what to do? For something that's going to turn into worms and rot away. I make a shvuah, I'm going to shear you off to Shemayim. Miyad, after he told me, he gave me his little speech. I stood up and I kissed him on his head. Says, many like you, there should be a lot of Nazirim like you. Meaning there was a tremendous Yerushalayim that this person had. When the pasuk said, that's talking about somebody like you, who took it to the full extent. So Rashi says it here. That's what he said himself. What does Rashi have to say there for? This fellow had a conversation with his Yitzhahara as if his Yitzhahara is some external being. And he says, I said to him, Rasha. So first of all, he's talking to him as an external being, and he calls him out as being a Rasha. I just want to mention, Stama Ha'or, I think they told us too. It's a Dover Pasha that we know there on Ban writes and comes from earlier sources that before the Chet of Adam Rishon, Ra existed in the world, but it wasn't internal in the Adam. When the Gemara Shabbos Kufim Heir so says that when Chava ate from the Eitz Hadas, the Nachash was matal bazuhama. He poisoned her, and that zuhama was Ra, where the Eitz Hara went into the physical guf of the Adam. Rabbi Cohen was talking along these lines a little bit also. Let's just see the Maharsha. A few lines the Maharsha says. Maharsha, if I remember correctly, is Madai. Can just about every word in the Gemara. Ba nazirechem min adorim. Yesh la'ayin malei lahaskir shabam min adorim. Gam shayrei lav be'iroi. Who cares that he's from the Dharm? Who cares what his job was? He could have been a plumber. Gam hashapir Rashi. Shapach has a layitri that the Tzahara grabbed hold of him. Lavi ainli de hira avera udachut. Ma'inyin mizgal lazah. Why did he say that he was mizgal? V'nira sheremes shabam edarm shayr chacham. He was a chacham. Because the Gemara says, he was involved in the midst of Kibbut Av. It was a Malkum Shai Makirim by B'Malasai. Omar Mitzurf was actually Shai Mastakal Atmai B'Bavua Shai Gam Yafei Naim. Meaning, the Maharsha builds up the story very, very nicely now that the Yezahar tried to chap a hold of him. Upavaz ala Yitzir Bikesh to Tardani, Hu Yezahar Hu Malach HaMavas. Well, then Namar Tzefer Rachel Tzadik Mavakish LaHamisa Harashu Hu Yezahara Mistakal the Tzefer B'Yofi HaTzadik B'Maloisav. Well, Yedei Zem Mavakish LaVili De Meisim Rekadei LaHamisa. Fine. He says, Stam, the murder idea that the Maharsha is saying over here. He says the Yezahara can't be servile when we do mitzvahs. He's going to try to turn a mitzvah into an Aveira. Or he's going to try to, how? By telling us the Aveira is a mitzvah. And he plays these games with us. When you talk to your Yetzirah as an external being, you're free from chet. Because you're not getting, like he said, who do you think you are that you have any power to tell me what to do? Russia. He spoke to him very sharp. He didn't just tell him, hey, excuse me, have a nice day. Then he told him, Russia, it doesn't belong to you. This does not belong to you at all. Who does it belong to? Well, you say it belongs to me, but who's the me that's talking? There's a Rebbeinu Shalom that controls the world and that tells me that I need to do kach and kach, and you are going and you're interrupting the system over here. Get lost. So he's telling me. So Shimon HaTzadik says, that's what the pasuk says. Ish ki yafi linda ned and nazir l'hazir l'Hashem. That's the Nezer, which means a crown, that the Nazir is trying to shtel avak. And that's the Nakuda of what it's all about. Because when you externalize the Yetzirah, and this is a Gemara to give a smach to what the Maharal is saying. Amr b'medrash, va'anaychi ish chalak, Reb Levi amar la kavoitz, pirish, mi sheyesh like kavutzais, v'hu ba'alsei, a person who has long hair, v'kereach, you have a person with long hair and a person who's bald. Shahoyu al sfas hagoyren, they were standing by the place where they threshed the grain. Ola hamoitz be'kavoitz, v'nistabach v'sarai. So the moitz is the straws flying all over the place. It gets all caught in his beard, it gets caught in his hair. The bald guy, it's much easier to, just puts his hand in it and wipes it off. Masha Enken, the guy with the long hair, he's got to pick it out of his beard somehow, and then it gets caught and more stuck. And he has a lot more going on because it's a lot more tangled and twisted into his beard. A whole year, Esav Arasha, he's getting dirty and filthy from sin. And he has no way out, he doesn't have any kapara. But Yaakov Avinu ain't a kap. Yaakov Avinu is not like this at all. Bo Yom HaKippurim u'miskaper. Comes in Kippur, and he has a kapara. K'da Omar ki bayoyim hazeh yichaper aleichem. On this day, I'll be mechaper for them. Ad kam. Right, azay is a medrash. Yeah? Zak Maral. Ma'in zeh she Yaakov is chalak lehoy b'yiseir. Yomar b'shvil kach shem Kippur mechaper. Someone who's bald, someone whose hair was bald in hair. What's this got to do with Yom Kippur, Kapara, Esav, Masak? What's the story over here? What are we talking about? It was Shvil Esav who balseir leyil like Kapara because Esav had hair. He doesn't have a Kapara. What does that got to do with anything? The Medrash Zebo Levar. The Medrash is coming to explain Hadvar Mashar Marnu Ki Yaakov Noki v'Tohor Nafshe Menachet. The mitzvah of Yaakov Avinu is that he's clean and pure from chet, meaning his nefesh, right? I don't know if we mentioned this, but the Avnei Nezer brings, it says a davar pashut. I mean, it's something that we have to realize. As far as saying things, a lot of times they are in a certain sense pashut, but we have to figure out how to apply it into our lives, and then it's really not pashut. There's different parts of the neshama, like Maral said earlier. There's some parts of the neshama, nefesh kisechta. Right? Rabbi Yonason once had mentioned that the Torah never says that a neshama kisechta. The Torah doesn't use the word neshama. It's always nefesh. Nefesh is the lowest level of neshama. The goyim have a nefesh. Not more than that. Right? Nefesh kisechta. Kares is on the nefesh. Right? So it's always by the nefesh. But so that's the lowest part. But over here, Yaakov is naki v'tar nafshem nechet ki nafshay tahira ukdusha ukdoisha mitzad atzma rak masha yesh chet behem hu min achutz mitzad yetzahara. This that he does averis is because of the Lashon Ramban kekelev hamnabeach b'chutz, like a dog that's barking outside. He's doing it for his attention. He's trying to get your attention. Ignore him. Don't listen to him. You start paying attention to him, you're going to start up with some kind of relationship. Stay away from this guy because he's always going to come back for more. Right? You never feed the ketzalach. Because you feed them, they come back and you never get rid of them. Meaning, it's not because Esav had hair, Yaakov didn't have hair. That's not the point. What's the nefesh? Nefesh is the physical, let's talk about the physical makeup of the person, the flesh of a person. And here is something that's even more external than that. Right? That's why there's always, that's why the busy with the people who are busy with the clippers are busy with the nails and the hair and all these things. I don't know from these things from clippers, but one thing is we know for sure, and this is what the Maral is saying, that the pshat is because it's the most external part of the person. The further external you go away from the inside of a mensch, the more the chitzainim have the yechelas to grab onto. And we don't like those things, so we want to, try to cut them and shave them low, so that they can't get involved. Person who's smooth skin, there's nothing on it. There's no taisefes ubelichi sarim. V'davar zehoyer royal Yaakov. This was very befitting for Yaakov Avinu b'mashay ishtam, because he was an ishtam. Ishtam means that he was shalem. He was complete. Meaning there was a perfect. Like you take a picture of a mountain, it's perfect. But sometimes you can take a picture of a mountain, but like it wasn't that sunny, or like the camera shook a little bit. It's nice, but it's not perfect. Right? Sometimes you can have something that's like Yaakov Avinu was perfect. He was shalem. The kacha Yaakov ishchalak shachalak ein b'teisefes ein b'chisaron klal. It was 101% perfect. Aval Esav hoybal seim neisha seyish b'teisefes v'chisaron hasarves shehen gedelim tamid l'ma shehen gedelim l'shayich b'hem hashlama. Another interesting thing. Here it doesn't stop growing. So say, he's always steiging. No. That's not what we're saying over here. We're saying in the Kud is that it never gets to Shleimus. It's not possible. There's no metzias within this system for it to get to Shleimus. Esav is removed from Shleimus. He's not on the track to ever get Shleimus. So you just have to cut it. It grows a little more, you cut a little more. You can't leave it because it's just going to keep growing. Right? That's like it's almost like it's annoying. V'chisaron hasarish and gedelim tamid, they're constantly growing. L'mashem gedelim, l'shayich them hashlama. When something that's shalem, something that has to be perfect, it's complete. Shalem means complete. If it's still going on, it means it didn't get there yet. Esav's still going on, so he's never going to get there. The Ein Safek, and there is no doubt, shehachet hu taisefes hala adam v'shinui ba'adam sheyatza ha'adam mima sheroi sheyetze ha'adam masheroi lios. A person is on a track. Maral says in a few places. A person, a yid, is on the track to kedusha, tahara, Torah, avoda, and then what happens? He's off the track. A couple minutes later, he can be right back on track. It's adding on to the shleimus. It doesn't look right. There's something off about it. The children of Yaakov, meaning us, Klal Yisrael, us today, have a nefesh shleima mebli teisefes umebli chisaron be'atzmam. There is no chisaron and no teisefes. Mischaber b'nefesh chet v'zuham. And if he connects to the nefesh of chet and this poison that the nachash injected into Chava, v'mashe etzem nafsham yesh lahem, where their etzem nefesh has hashlemus b'meher yusar. It goes away very quickly. L'kach medam chet zel ish chalak shum olav hamaytzi v'chutz me'akash u'ba'atzma chalak v'sholem ena mekabel davar olav u'bekalum avirei. Mela, we compare a chet to the case of a person who a piece of straw landed on his shiny forehead, right? It's very easy for him to remove it. It doesn't get stuck, it doesn't get tangled, right? He could just wipe it off and it goes off. So that's how Klal Yisrael, that's how they get their kapara. Because it's not be'etzem. It's not be'etzem. It's much easier when your hands are dirty to wash them with soap and you don't have to, go into it with all the blood and the guts like we were talking about before. You don't have to do that. It's much simpler. And a certain eifin, tshuva, is in a certain eifin, it's a very simple thing. Right? There's no such thing as tshuva that doesn't get, shtel zechfor, right? The yid in the shver matzav, he did a bunch of stuff, no good. I mean, he's not holding by doing a tshuva shleim. Right? He's still enjoying himself a little bit. He thinks he's enjoying himself a little bit. Well, he gives a crack. He's like, back in the day, I used to be a masmid. The little charatala, somewhere along the way, had up shashtel charatala. It does something. It's a tutepish by him. In Shemayim, they're marshiv it. V'kach ba'atzmai, shebekalus yusar hachet m'asher shalom benafshay. V'meila, if us, Klal Yisrael, are much more shalom benefesh, it's much easier for us to remove the chet from ourselves. Ki ein hachet shu teisef zalav meschaberim mai. V'kach yom ha'kippurim ma'aver sachet. Yom Kippur happens whether we do anything about it or not. Now, just like Shabbos, Shabbos Shabbos, just like Yom Tov, Bezin has to be Mekadosh, Chodesh, and that. Shabbos is Kviya V'Kaima. It's automatic. Every 7 days, Shabbos comes, whether you're ready or not, it's here. It's Shabbos. You can't drive anymore. You can't turn on lights anymore. It's a Yom Kippur is Shabbos Shabbos. It comes in the Tara that when the sun sets tomorrow, the Tara that's going to come in is automatic, and it's the greatest matana that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can give us. The Tara just comes in. We don't do anything for it. No, avada we have to work on ourselves to do tshuva, but even mitzad itself, there's something that can create the metzias of this Tara. L'kachem Kippur ma'aver sachet. Yom Kippur is the soap. Yom Kippur is the cleansing agent, the washing machine that knocks out all the stains on neshama, if there's such a thing. Esav was hairy, he has seir, ein bo shleimus ba'atzmai, doesn't have a shleimus mitzad itself. L'kach hachetru teisef salem yibachutz mischaber yimei legamri v'lo yuvdal me'ithay. It's part of him. He's an ish seir. Meaning that he's defined by this teisefes and lack of shleimus. Yaakov is an ish tam. He's an ish cholok. He's an ish of perfection. His mitzias is perfection. Meaning that this neshama shenasat to be tahirahi, and that's how it will be from the beginning till the end. Right? That's why going back. The mazel of El is a basula. Basula is something that was not touched. Right? Zok Dabnei Nezer, that the neshama of a mensch is something that's not touchable. A chet, there's a certain part of the neshama that a chet will never ever touch, will never stain, will never get dirty. That is tahirahi. That's the metzias. Think about the straw gets stuck in the beard. Sometimes he will never be able to get it unless he chops up his beard. Once he chops up his beard, he's getting into the world of chalak. Not naturally, it's a big avodah. But and therefore, we're being medameh him to the person that has all these long hair, that the straw gets stuck in his hair and he can't take it out because there's a chibur to the mites. It gets stuck in there. And then, if you let the beard grow long enough, it'll start wrapping around this piece of straw that you left in there. And that's what tomorrow I'll say. His chatam gets so bumbled together with everything else, and it's like it becomes a whole bilbul. Doesn't even know where his chatam are anymore. And the mitzvah is, even the Friday people, these baseball players or whatever, Yom Kippur, they don't go to work. They don't. I had a teacher back in the day. He said, yeah, he fasts till like 4 o'clock, and then he goes to the back of the shul, has a coffee, and continues. Right? He went to shul on Yom Kippur, that's Archet Hazach. But the Nakuda is that there's a Metzias of the Yidden are that we're Yaakov Ishtam. We're the Ishchalak, like he said. We have the Tara. I just want to end off reading the Lashon HaMishnah. Omer Bakiva, Ashreichem Yisrael. L'fnei mi atem mitarim, u'mi mitar estem. Avichem shebashamayim, shenema v'zerak elei chamayim taharim, Tahartam, Mikol Gilulechem Atar Estem, V'oimer Mikveh Yisrael Hashem. Ma Mikveh Mitaris Etmeim, Avakadosh Baruch Hu Mitaris Yisrael. That's the bottom line. And there's nothing more special and nothing better than that. So I just want to invite everyone, all of us, that we should take this opportunity to connect to the Achas Bashana and how Klal Yisrael is Echad, Torah Achas, and we should have a Gemar Ksima Tova, and we should take the Torah with us, and we should continue throughout our lives throughout the year. I give you